Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're going to be going into my predictions for what sort of Nintendo announcements we could see at Game Awards 2021. Now every year at the Game Awards we see certain announcements from Nintendo, 2 to 3 announcements, not saying every single one's the biggest megaton thing in the world, but we usually see something or another at the show from Nintendo. They always have a presence, that's the way it's been for the last 6 years or so. So this time around, what are we going to see? Well, that's what we're predicting today. Now before we jump into things, let me first very quickly talk about my social media. You may see a few different things here on screen. You can check that all out. It is linked in the description below. And of course, if you like what you're seeing here, you can subscribe. Now every year that I do these predictions, I feel like I always have to make mention of the fact that yes, this is an award show, not necessarily a game announcement show, but in reality, they bring in a lot of game announcements to bring in more people to watch the Game Awards show, because that's what they do to get us to watch it, and that's why I'm going to pay attention to this, because of the announcements. So I'm just going to be fully forthcoming here. That's why I care about the Game Awards, because there are going to be announcements. Now that said, I do have somewhat of an interest in the actual awards, because one of my favorite games of the year, no, not one of, my favorite game of the year, Metroid Dread, has been nominated for Game of the Year. So yes, I am curious if Metroid Dread may end up winning Game of the Year. I am curious for other games that I enjoyed this year and how they'll perform. For example, Monster Hunter Rise, will that get Best RPG? I do not know. There are other options. So I will say that I do care, but what I really care about are the announcements we'll be seeing at the Game Awards show, hence why this video is solely about potential Nintendo announcements we could see at the Game Awards. Now I mentioned earlier how we usually get 2 to 3 announcements every year at the Game Awards from Nintendo, and I don't think this year's going to be any different. So to get started with my predictions, I'm going to predict that there will be some sort of third-party game announcement or update at the Game Awards. What that's going to be, that's hard to say. There was a year where we got a trailer for No More Heroes 3. There was a year where we got a trailer for Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3. And I think there was even a year where we got a trailer for the DLC of that particular game as well. And who knows, maybe we'll get an update on Bayonetta 3. That game was actually announced at the Game Awards back in 2017. So surely there is some potential for some sort of third-party game announcement at the show. Now what that's going to be, I am not sure. I think there's a possibility that maybe Monster Hunter Rise is showcased there. Perhaps they give us an update trailer on the DLC Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. That is a possibility. Now I said this would be a predictions video, so I should make a prediction and not just a speculation, but I'll be fully frank here, I'm not really confident in what that third party thing could be. It could be this, heck, it may even be more than just one thing. It could be a number of things, because there are a lot of third parties invested in the Switch. So expect to see a couple third-party announcements related to the Nintendo Switch during the show. Maybe it'll be something for Monster Hunter Rise, maybe it'll be for another entirely different third-party game we don't know about. So, we'll see. But when it comes to my other predictions, they're a bit more concrete. It's not just predicting some third-party announcements. I actually feel fairly good about my other predictions here. I think I'm right on the money, but of course only time will really tell. I could be wrong. It's not set in stone. Let's say it's a 50-50 chance. So here we go. The next prediction I have is that we're going to get something related to Metroid. That I feel pretty good in. Why? Because, well, one, Metroid Dread was nominated for the show, but they wouldn't have decided to have an announcement for Metroid just because of that. This would have been planned before that. Maybe they expected to get some sort of nomination at the show because they knew the game was going to be pretty good and they would be received pretty well. Sure. But what I'm getting at here is I think it'll work out really well with Metroid Dread being nominated for Game of the Year for there to be some sort of Metroid announcement to be paired with that. So what would that be? A lot of people are hoping to see Metroid Prime 4. I would love to see Metroid Prime 4. I think at some point or another we got to see that game. I think it's pretty far into development. I think if they wanted to, they could show us something. That could happen. However, there are other Metroid projects that I think should be talked about first. For example, it's been rumored that a Metroid Prime remake is coming out next year. I believe this rumor because of the sources. The sources are pretty good, such as Emily Rogers. So I do buy into that. I think it's happening. It does make sense. It sort of explains part of the story behind of why Metroid Prime 4 is restarted in the way it did with Retro Studios. I think that's something that could maybe show up at the Game Awards. And I think it is coming out next year, but I don't even necessarily think that's what we're going to see. What I'm fully predicting is that yes, there'll be something Metroid the show announced, but it won't be Prime 4 and it won't be Prime Remake, but actually DLC for Metroid Dread. The game just came out, we just talked about how it's nominated for Game of the Year. Wouldn't it make the most sense to talk about the DLC for this Game of the Year nomination at the Game Awards? And I do think there's a pretty good chance that we're getting DLC for Metroid Dread. Some people will argue otherwise because we've never seen DLC for Metroid Dread, but, well, we've never seen a big Metroid game come out on a major system in this day and age where DLC is popular. So this is the first time where there was a real opportunity to do so. And if you look at all of Nintendo's major games, pretty much all of them have DLC. Assuming they're not a remake, they pretty much all have DLC. Even games that didn't sell 5 to 10, 15 million, games that sold only like 2 or 3 million still got DLC, like Fire Emblem Three Houses and Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So if you think the Metroid Dread's not going to even sell well and it wouldn't warrant DLC, well, it's already sold over 1 million and it's likely going to exceed 2 million. I think it's very likely it'll end up outselling Xenoblade 2 and Fire Emblem. So yes, I think it's likely that there's going to be DLC for this game because it's selling well. Most major Nintendo games get DLC, and I think it would be very fitting. I just put out a video a couple days ago talking about how DLC could work in Metroid Dread, and there's another video talking about why it's likely in more detail. But yes, I think there's going to be DLC. That's what I'm predicting for the show. They're going to showcase this. It'll come out sometime next year in the first 6 months of the year, and I think it's going to be something very exciting, and it's going to pair up really well next to Metroid Dread being discussed as Game of the Year. So that's just something that I think is going to be really, really exciting to see. But on to my next prediction. I think there's going to be some Zelda stuff. There have been hints and speculations all rampant throughout the internet that there will be something there. We've talked about how Samus Hunter has heard some things and that Zelda will be at the show. I think this is pretty darn likely. I think Zelda is definitely going to have a presence there. Breath of the Wild 2 is one of the nominations for most anticipated game for 2022, so we got that going already. But also, there has been some suggestion that maybe we get some sort of celebration of the Zelda 35th anniversary. We did just get the Game & Watch, but maybe there could be some sort of score, some sort of orchestrated ballad or something like that that is at the show. There's always a multitude of different bands and songs and things going on at the Game Awards. Something Zelda related is not out of the question at all, very conceivable. But this isn't the main Zelda thing that I expect. The main Zelda thing I expect is a new trailer for the sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, Breath of the Wild 2. Earlier this week, I talked about how I think a title reveal for this game is very likely. So likely, in fact, that it is my prediction. I am predicting that we will get another trailer to the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, and it will give us a reveal of the full title of the game. That's what we're going to see at the show. That is my prediction. Some people may be skeptical that Zelda will have a presence at the show, but if you look at Nintendo's history at the Game Awards, it's either been Breath of the Wild or Super Smash Bros. All of the DLC for Super Smash Bros. Is done. We're not getting any more announcements for Smash Ultimate. So with it done, the other major game that Nintendo can go back to is the Breath of the Wild series, and the sequel's coming out next year. So yes, I think it's very likely, so likely, that it is one of my predictions for the Game Awards. In fact, I think it's going to be the biggest thing we'll see from Nintendo at the Game Awards. So that's what I think. I think we're probably going to get a couple third-party things shown off at during the show for the Nintendo Switch. We're going to get an announcement for Dread DLC. We're going to see some sort of Zelda concert or some sort of music related to the history of Zelda. And we're going to get another trailer for the sequel to Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, where they will reconfirm 2022, maybe they'll even say late 2022, but the big thing will be a reveal of the full title of the game. Those are my predictions for different Nintendo announcements we will be seeing at Game Awards 2021. But what do you guys think? Do you guys agree with my predictions for the show, or do you have different ideas? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.